Welcome to the end demo of CognitiveMapr. In this short little demo, I'll show you how the program works and a few of its features. So let's get started with the home page. You get a little welcome screen, you get a little explanation of what the program does. Up on the right, you have a little settings bar, which is currently only filled with two settings, namely the dark mode, which changes the colors of the page to a more dark feeling, and the colorblind mode, which uses colors that can be differentiated more for people that have a form of color blindness. Next to the settings, you have a help. It will give a short explanation of what you can do on the page and where you can find all the features. The main use of the program is, of course, to make graphs. So we'll go over here. We'll grab a few graphs. You can slip them in. You can put them in there. You can make here. You can give it a name, which is very handy because otherwise you cannot really keep them out from each other. In here you have multiple features. Of course, buttons to remove each of the files, and buttons to remove the entire line, and also one to clear the entire table. You can see that on every page the top bar stays. Right. After you've put in all the data, you can check if it's correct, you can go next, and you can see that it has been successfully built. You can close these notifications. They will also automatically close, and you end up on probably the most important page of all, the page where you can see the graph. I'll go from left to right bottom. On the left you have little tabs. You can switch between the graphs to see the different ones. You also have the legend. This legend is movable. You can press on the paradigms in order to highlight them, and you can press on the nodes in order to hide, or well, actually more like highlights by removing the other ones. You can also change the colors by clicking on the little bar up here. Give them nice little colors. You can also do this with edges, presenting a nice way to customize the graph. Well, this has become unreadable, but that's why we have multiple graphs. So I'll go to Sarkozy, which still uses the same as before. Then you have a little bar here in which you can search the nodes. You get a list of nodes available, but you can also search them. So if I go for EU, you can see it only highlights the nodes that have the words EU in it, and also the connections if available. You can also swipe them, and then it goes back to the normal view. On the right you have multiple settings for visuals and analysis scripts. Here you can toggle, for example, instrument support, and it will put it in the label. By default it is off because it kind of messes with the text spacing and becomes a little more difficult to read, but it is available. You can toggle off paradigm support, and you will see the colors of the nodes disappear and also the legend getting smaller. And you can also turn off evaluate concepts, and then you can see if the value of the node is positive or negative. Then we have path settings, which is pretty cool, because if you press on a node now, you will see all its ancestors. But if, for example, you press on one in the middle, you will only see the ancestors, but you also want to see what influence it has. You can turn it on, and you'll see all the connections it goes towards, and it has an effect on. To get out of this, you just press somewhere else again. For the visuals, you can turn on and off the legend. You can highlight the edge weights and also turn them off again. You can scale the edges by their weight, which can be pretty handy or annoying. You can also scale the nodes by their weight. As you can see, we had a little issue that sometimes the circle doesn't scale with it. You can also show node attributes on hover, which is this, and you just get all the data that we have of the node. Or you can also turn that off if it's annoying, and then it'll just highlight the label. You can also see the weighted degree value in the nodes, which is a perfect transition to zooming in and zooming out. In the graph, as you can see, if you zoom in, there's a little 1 on there showing that it has a weight of 1. But if we go to economic growth, you can see a 4. While we're in the graph, you can also move the nodes. You can move multiple nodes, you can move all of them, and you can see all the connections move with them. You can hover on edges and you'll get to see their weight. We also have zoom buttons for the graph down here. You can move around, you can zoom into a certain part, which is be very funny if you, there we go, turn on a certain path, you can go here. Once you have something in your screen that you want, you can actually go to the export screen. I won't do the CSV because that is a pretty big file, but we can go to PNG and something printable and then export it. And you'll see we get a few downloads, and these downloads, let's open the PNG, contain what you just saw in the screen. I see that it's a little off screen, but here's the legend, and you can see the path I highlighted. If you've moved the legend, it will also have moved in this export. There's more you can do in the program. Let's unselect this node, go back to the center a little bit. You can also go to the edge table, in which you can see all the data from the edges, and if it doesn't fit, you can expand them by selecting the row in which you want to see, and you'll see the graph, the table moves with it. You can also go to the node table, and it works the same. You just see all the data we have of the nodes, and it's nice and neatly laid out to see. And then you can of course go back to the graph, and you'll see the graph again. This is kind of all the features. You can also go back again and then go forwards again to see this. If you go back, we can also remove the node list from this, and let's just grab Sarkozy because that one shows another cool feature. You can see it's missing a node list. It'll warn you about it, that you're missing data. But if you go to next, you can see we get a little value here and a notification that 104 nodes were generated using default values we got from the client. We also have a unstable cycle in this graph. And you have to choose values. Currently the names don't really have, well, recognizable names because I only used an edge list that contained numbers. But you can imagine node names standing here, and then it will become a lot clearer. So the cycle had 3 possible states, and we can choose which of the states probably fits better within the speaker. And then if you say use selected, it will generate the graph using that selected, and you can see in the node values, which is the border around here, if it's used the correct ones. And you can see, since there's no node list, there's no paradigms, so it won't show them. Pretty much for the rest, everything works. We can also go back, and we can also only upload a node list. So we'll only grab the Rutte node list, and we can name the graph. And then you'll get the warning that you're missing an edge list, and please ensure that all the graphs have at least an edge list and a name assigned. Since we don't have enough data from just a node list, you can't make a graph from it, and the program will warn you about that. If there's any issue within your data, the program will give you a warning, just the same as that they were generated, or an error if the error is the mistake is too severe, with what you have to do in order to fix it.